in, beautiful people, to my Dirty Rotten Scandals, The Price is Right review. We are going to be reviewing and going over the latest 2 episodes of E's Dirty Rotten Scandals. This was episodes 5 and 6 for those who are unsure of which ones to watch. This was a lot. I may be like the only person in the whole United States of America that did not care for The Price is Right. Like, if it came to game shows, I preferred, what was that one? Wheel of Fortune, Jeopardy, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. As some of my siblings would say, Amina liked the more nerdy game shows. So I wasn't really into The Price is Right. It always felt like gimmicky and kind of to me, but I do know of Bob Barker and all of these things from the video. But before we get into dissecting this documentary, I want to say welcome in to everybody who is taking the time out of your busy schedules to watch or listen to my takes on this documentary. I do appreciate everybody who stops by. I also hope that if you are a regular here and have been watching our recaps, reviews, and other content, I hope that you consider liking the video. You're appreciated. If you've been stopping by the channel, I hope you consider subscribing. Either way, we appreciate every person who stops by because I'm a small YouTuber, so everybody matters. They all matter. But we also want to encourage you to see the description of this video. There are links in the description to tap in with my co-host. I do a lot of Bravo and Oprah Winfrey Network reviews with James from the Watch Your Mouth Reviews channel. I also co-host with Kiwan JTV, Shayna_MCD, as well as several other great African-American creators. So I hope that you guys tap into them. Woo child. Let's get into this episode. So the episode starts by giving us a little background to Bob Barker. For those who may not know, Bob Barker was the host of The Price is Right for decades, I believe like over 40 years or something crazy like that. Some people view him as a television legend. I know of his name. I've never viewed him personally as a television legend, but we learned that in the 90s was when scandals first started to come out about Bob Barker. So to give us some backstory on Bob Barker's life, they go over and introduce us to his publicist that he knew for like 50 plus years and was his publicist for over 40 years. And this gentleman went by the name of Roger Neal. Now, the way Roger was introduced in this episode, I would have thought that Roger was going to be like fluidly throughout it or have more of like a bigger impact in the show, but he didn't. He gave slight obsessive. So I'm like, okay, this show is called Dirty Rotten Scandals. And they've called you to discuss this person who you're kind of fanboying. He was like, oh, yep, this is a tie that Bob Barker gave to me before he passed away. I'm honored to wear it. As you participate in the Dirty Rotten Scandal documentary about this man that you so honored to be wearing a tie for. I'm just saying, I thought that was a little odd. But Roger lets us know that Bob's career started when he was 27, which is kind of late, but you know, men get away with things that women could never. But he starts his career at 27, and when his career started and he first got into The Price is Right, this happened in the 1950s. After that, The Price is Right didn't really do well. There wasn't much popularity, so it got popular again at a later time. I believe it was like in the 60s and 70s, it got popular again. So we then get to meet Barbara Hunter, who was a production worker and assistant that was also the first female to work on the team of The Price is Right. It was also a big deal because back in the day, like, women were not as prevalent in positions like that as they are today. So in some ways, she paved the way probably for a lot of other women. But I was thinking in my head, I was like, wow, you're the first to do something. But then I'm also like, damn, this is a scandalous documentary. So I am sure that she had to go through things, see things, all of those things. But she lets us know that she became a really good friend to Bob Barker and that everything in the beginning was normal. She also explains that there were issues with Mark Goodson, who was the creator of the show. And this is where we learn of like the sexual harassment, unfortunately, that a lot of the women working on The Price is Right had to experience. I figured out very quickly, I was like, okay, so this is the good old boys club. So Barbara says later on in the documentary, but I'm just going to speak about it now, that she was expected to dress up like a playboy to go and bring a drink or a paper to the creator of the show. And she was like, nothing happened to me, but it very well could have. And I'm just like, Barbara, you're way too calm about a lot of stuff. And sexual harassment is unfortunate. Women have to deal with it, especially in male dominated and focused areas and industries. But I hate women who are just so passive or like, oh, I gotta have a job. Like there's nothing else you can do in the world. So you're just gonna let these people do what they're doing to you. I don't like that. But I also understand that back then it was a different time. So even had she complained, she probably would not have gotten far. But I do appreciate Barbara for participating in the documentary, because the production people are who we really want to see, because they can really attest to what went on in the background. Now, we then learned, apologies, y'all. I got allergies. I feel like I'm catching a cold. And then I've been screaming at concerts all month long. Go look on my TikTok or Instagram stories, y'all, if you don't believe me. So my voice has been in and out. I'm fighting for my life, and I'm doing the best I can with what I got, as the great Mariah Carey would say. But we do get to learn about Bob Barker's beauties, which were a thing on The Price is Right. Here's the funny thing. Never did I watch The Price is Right. My parents were like, my dad, I'm not going to lie to y'all, my dad was very radical, hung with the Panthers, all of that. And he made it very clear. He was like, Bob Barker is a racist. My dad used to say that as a kid all the time. So there are like certain things he wouldn't let us watch because of that. Price is Right is one of those things. I never had interest in it. My grandmother watched it. My dad would get in my grandma for watching it. Hot Mess Express. But we learned about the Barker Beauties, which became a thing on the show. They were the women that were showing the prizes, kind of participating in hosting the show. They were a pivotal part of it. And the original Barker Beauties were Janice, Diane, and Holly. Now, Holly participated in the documentary, which I was happy about. And Holly came on and she explained that things were great in the beginning. She was known for being fun and silly, but that things kind of changed later on in her tenure on The Price is Right. Holly lets us know that she wanted to wait until Bob Barker was gone before she told her story. And at first I was like, gone from the show? Because I didn't know what happened. I didn't know any of this. I was new. So my reaction watching this is like, truly just, I'm like a virgin, just untouched. I had no clue as to the fact that Holly went through all that she tells us that she went through. But she said she wanted to wait till that man was good and in the ground and headed to the upper room, or to the room that's beneath the earth, wherever his direction, wherever he was judged to have been put in, that's where he was headed to go. And she says she's not talking till he can come back. And that tells me, I was like, oh shit, this is probably not going to be good. There's probably much more that happened that was so bad. And I believe this may be the last episode for Dirty Rotten Scandals for now for season 1. So I'm like, and they saved this as their big ending. Not good. But Holly tells us about a man named Jay Wolpert, who was instrumental in the prizes that were given in The Price is Right. And she says that Jay left the show in 1978. And that is when things changed. Holly, you look good. You was on TV and working in a full-grown adult in 1978, which was many, 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 many years ago. Okay. And she still looked good. I said, look at this colorless lady aging right. Go girl. She looked good with her little smoky eye. But she tells us about him leaving the show, and she marks Jay's exit and departure as when things changed. So after Jay left, we learned that Barbara Hunter, who was a very close friend to Bob Barker and a part of the show from the beginning and the first female to work on the show, she was supposed to be the next in line to take over the job of Jay Wolpert. But instead of taking over the job, and she did his job while they figured out and found his replacement, they decided to choose the son of the CEO or the person who created the show, which for those who do not know is nepotism. Examples: Northwest, Kim Kardashian. Who else? What are other examples? Willow and Jaden Smith. pretty much the children that are born into success. Chet Hanks, the rapper, country singer, child of Tom Hanks. People are confused by him, but Tom and Rita are from the Bay Area, and I am not confused by their child at all because people could go from country music to gigging some Mac Dre. You'd be surprised at the versatility with music out here, but I will digress on Chet Hanks. But pretty much they chose the son of one of the creators of the show to be the producer, and he was terrible at his job, didn't know what he was doing. They also pointed out that he got the exact same salary that Barbara had to work 10 years to get, just straight out the gate with no degree, no background, no experience, just the fact that he was the son of the creator, which is crazy. This is also something for those who may not be aware. Historically, women have had to fight for everything. We had to fight to get credit scores of our own. We had to fight to be able to buy and rent apartments on our own. Women had to fight for women's rights as to what we can do with our own doggone bodies. And even to this day, something that's not changed that women have not won the fight over is equal pay. Women are still paid less than most men at jobs that we do better. It's unfortunate. It's just the way the foundation of this country was built. And that's probably why it's going to take so long to change. But it looks like Barbara had to deal with that through this nepotism, which was unfortunate. And I love that it was Holly who brought that up and not Barbara herself. That's how you know Holly is a real one, because she said, let me tell you what else they did to her. I loved Holly throughout this whole documentary. You have to respect her. But the things just went from bad to worse. In addition to the salary, they start to describe the workplace culture as becoming male dominated. It wasn't always like that, even though men kind of had the upper hand back in the day, but it really became male dominated. And Holly says she knew it was changing when production came up to her. They brought her into someone's dressing room or office, and they said, listen, we need the models to really fill out the bathing suits. Now, when the show goes on hiatus and is not, filming, they're just playing reruns, that's when the stars get their break. So they told Holly before they went on hiatus, they said, why don't you make good use of your time and get some breast implants so you can fill out those bathing suits better? I said, I know you fucking lying, because what? She was beautiful. Her body was perfect, but you're going to tell me I have to get breast implants to keep my job, to fill out something on TV, and not even offer to pay for it? I got to pay for it and handle my own recovery? That's crazy. I would never. That's why I always say on the Watch Your Mouth Reviews channel, usually it comes up, I could never do reality TV. I could never be a celebrity. I could never do it. Because I would look at them and be like, no, why don't you go pay for some titties and you put on this bathing suit? I can't believe that they would do stuff like that, but I do know and have heard that that was the culture. Let me know if you guys who are watching were surprised at all by any of what was in the documentary, because there really was a lot that these women had to deal with. And I also feel like the women went through hell, but the men who worked on The Price is Right didn't really go through anything. But let me know how you guys feel. I'm totally open to opinions, and I'd like to keep the conversation going in the comments, because my opinion could be off. You never know. And I won't know unless y'all tell me. But another pivotal point in The Price is Right in the early days was the death of Bob Barker's wife. Bob Barker was married to a woman. They showed pictures of her at the beginning of the documentary. And it seemed like he was a good guy, loved his wife. Now, his wife was diagnosed with lung cancer in 1976, and she died 2 months after being diagnosed with cancer. God bless anybody that's dealing with cancer. And God bless anyone that lost anyone to cancer during times that medicine was not as advanced as it is today. Because you never know, it could have been a life that could have been saved. So I always think of stuff like that and feel for them. But it sounds like Bob's wife really supported his career. Sounds like she grounded him. Sounds like she kept him on the straight and narrow and being a decent person, which, I don't know, I was talking to my husband about it, and he was like, a good woman really can help you stay on the right track and stuff. And of course, when she passed away, that's when things changed with Bob Barker, specifically for the worst. I always say people don't always just come out evil. I feel like there are things that happen to turn them that way. I truly believe that. And in his case, the death of his wife, it sounds like from what Barbara was explaining, because she was very close to Bob as a friend, it sounds like he was struggling with his grief. She said he was sad and he had confided in her saying that he didn't want to live now that his wife wasn't here at some point. So he was experiencing suicidal ideations, and it makes sense, because if you truly love your partner and men choose their wives and then she's taken from you, she didn't even get time to fight the cancer. She died 60 days after learning she had it. That's traumatic. That's heavily traumatic. So, for that, I have empathy. But for what the rest of what we gonna discuss, that empathy don't go far. Because if your wife, when she was living, prided herself on having you to behave in a certain way, then why would, now that she's gone, you just gonna act a plumb fool like she ain't watching you from the upper room just shaking her head? Like, what are you doing, Mr. Barker? That's not an excuse to act a plumb fool. It's just not. But he changed for the worst. His wife died in 76, and then the 80s came. Now, The Price is Right was heavily popular in the 80s. I know that from my mama, my parents telling me about it, and just being a 90s kid, like, people were kind of obsessive with it. My parents did keep me away from scandals and things like that. If it wasn't talked about in Double XL, Jet Magazine, Ebony, Essence, I probably didn't know about it, if we being honest. But Bob Barker during the 80s gained extreme popularity. He went from just being a host on a show to kind of being viewed as a guy people loved in America. He also gave back a lot, marched for things, was big on animal rights. Like, he did a lot of the things that people would view as like, oh, this must be a good person. People can have good qualities and be good, but also, be willing to do bad things. Just think of prisoners. They have to put people who go down for touching on kids and stuff in PC, because if they leave them in general population, the other people who done committed all these egregious crimes is going to come for them. Like, just because you are bad in one area doesn't mean you're bad in every area. But Bob Barker won 19 Emmys, and he got his first in the 80s. And this is when he also became an executive producer for the show, which took him from being kind of an employee to actually having power, if that makes sense. It would be like if you're in retail going from being a cashier to suddenly being the manager of the store. So he got a lot more power, and he definitely exercised and abused it. That is the truth. Now, I was happy because we got to interview and hear from Robert Cisneros, who was a stage manager and tells us a story about Janice, who was one of the Barker beauties, and how the culture started to change to avoid lawsuits and to protect Bob Barker legally in CBS. Robert Cisneros says that there was a camera that they were trying to move, and back in the day, there were swinging cameras versus the one that's attached that someone can drive and kind of move around. And the camera swung into Janice, hit her in the head, knocked her off the stage 3 feet onto a concrete ground. She was knocked unconscious, and she was expected to continue working. I said, what the hell? What? OSHA. Did they not exist in the 80s? Like, what? And nobody, she just kept working and was expected to be okay? Like, that's crazy. Let me know if you guys thought that was crazy, because I know a lot of my subscribers are outside of California, which I love. California is a state that has hella workplace laws. Like, they can't really do much to you at work. I've been a supervisor and wanted to fire people who were terrible and had committed fireable offenses, but was told I could not fire them because it violated some stupid ass California penal code or state law. So there are great workplace laws here. And I'm like, did that baffle anybody else? Because if I'm knocked in the head by a microphone, knocked off of the stage onto some concrete, unconscious, I'm suing you for all that you got. I'm suing you. The fact that she didn't sue and just kept going is crazy to me. It's actually crazy to me. Makes no sense. But we're going to move into the network a little bit. So for those who do not know, I actually appreciate and encourage people to check out James on the Watch Your Mouth Reviews channel on YouTube. And the reason why is because James is very open and does a good job at speaking about the systemic racism that goes on within television networks. CBS is, I believe, a company that is affiliated with Viacom. CBS, MTV, VH1, all of them, BET, they're all in one. But CBS has a notorious history of being a racist network that primarily prefers Caucasian people. I do remember that from back in the day. The only thing I watched on CBS growing up really was Survivor. And that was because Survivor would have people from all sorts of backgrounds to play on the show with a white host. But that was really the only thing I watched on CBS growing up because it was so white. Like even the CBS News here in the Bay Area, I did not watch. So I can understand certain things. So CBS was targeted for being too white in the 80s and the 90s, and they decided that it was time to diversify. So they did a diversity hire, aka DEI, and they hired the first Black Barker Booty with not Barker Booty, Lord, Barker Beauty, who went by the name of Kathleen Bradley. Now, I remember this lady's face. I always thought she was just a famous model in the Black entertainment world. I had no clue she had done Price is Right. The same with Claudia Jordan, who we'll get to later. But she was the first Black Barker Beauty. And she does explain to us that she dealt with racism on set. She said that she would hear staff when discussing her refer to her as the N-word. They would refer to other people as that. And they seemed to just have a disdain towards African-American people. There was a racist culture on The Price is Right. And after watching this documentary and some of the clips they showed, I do question some of the Black people that watched the show. Like, did they not see or feel or notice that? And I'm not attacking them in any way, because it's like the only way we're going to be welcomed in spaces is if we go in those spaces and be a part of them, even if we're not welcome. That's the only way people will start to accept us and accept it as a norm. But I'm just curious, and I wish they would have found like contestants that they could have interviewed that were Black on the show to ask them, like, did you ever experience this? Did you ever feel like you were dealing with racism while on the show? Like, was Barker, did you feel uncomfortable with him? Like, I would have liked if they would have dug into that part, but I get that may have been difficult to do. But they get more into the sexual harassment issues. And this is where we learned that CBS was aware of sexual harassment because people had complained about sexual harassment, and the way that they solved the complaint and dealt with the complaints was through enforcing a 10-second no stare rule with models, which means no producer can stare at a model for more than 10 seconds. Huh? Someone could say, I wasn't looking at her, I was looking at what was behind or above her. CBS, you're just as complicit as the staff on The Price is Right, because that doesn't even make any sense. When you do find out about harassment, that's what you do. A 10-second stare rule. That's it. And shout out to Miss Kathleen Bradley, because as we see throughout this documentary, and I'm sorry, there is nobody stronger than the Black woman. I truly believe that, and I'm proud to be one, because the only people to stand up and stand out and speak out and not accept the BS was a Black woman. Kathleen says she dealt with sexual harassment too. She said somebody tried to come up behind her and touch on him, and she let him think he was getting somewhere and whacked him in his junk with a golf club. Absolutely. Absolutely. You not just gonna come for us. Claudia Jordan, we'll get to her later. She said, y'all not coming for me. I will make your life hell the way you made mine hell. She said, we gonna trade this energy. It's gonna transfer. Okay. And so shout out to all the Black women, because they said y'all can do whatever you want to do to the rest of them, but you're not gonna do this with me. You're not. So shout out to them. And they did it without sleeping with them. I'm just saying what I'm saying for a reason. But we get to, speaking of sleeping with people, we get to the Diane Parkinson of it all. Diane was one of the original 3 Barker beauties. There was Diane, Janice, and Holly. And Diane, after Bob's wife died, and Diane had joined the show in the 70s, and after Bob's wife passed away, it looks like Diane and Bob started to sleep together while Bob Barker had a girlfriend. So he started cheating. He said the first wife was who I loved, and I'm not faithful to no one else. That's what it's given. But I'll digress. But he starts sleeping with Diane. And I said, ooh. First thing I said when I seen that, you do not shit where you eat. You just don't. You just don't. Diane messed up doing that. And I am not judging her for sleeping with him at all. The part of it that I don't think is smart, I just don't think it's smart to sleep with somebody at your job. I just don't. I've never heard of that working out. It causes problems. And then you're sleeping with somebody in a relationship. That's problematic. I understand Diana's single and she could do what she wants. And she was truly the hot girls forward slash baddie of the 70s because she slept with the man. It caused issues, obviously, with the other models. She started to get preferential treatment because she was sleeping with Bob. We start hearing stories from people who worked on production staff saying they would go to Bob's dressing room or his office, and Diane will be coming out of it, tying her robe up and wiping her lipstick, getting it right. I said she was in there giving him sloppy toppy, living her best life. And what's unfortunate is she did all of that with him and it went nowhere because we learned that Bob Barker was a racist and he felt, I don't even like to say this on the internet, it pissed me off. Bob Barker felt that Black men were the most diseased people on earth. That is what they quoted him for saying. I would also like to take this moment to acknowledge all of the beautiful, strong Black men that exist on the planet, from my anime lovers to my sports lovers to the YNs in the street. You all have purpose. You all are wonderful. And the only reason they hate you is because they ain't you. And there's a strength that you have that they wish that they could even think of. So I just want to shout out all Black men. There are wonderful Black men out there. I'm married to one. He pays the rent, takes care of me, does not cheat, is attractive, and has a job in gainful employment. So, I understand that could be intimidating, to some, but shout out to Black men. Nothing about you is diseased. Nothing about you is diseased at all. But Bob Barker didn't like them. And the reason that this is coming out is because Bob Barker did not know and was not aware that Diane Parkinson, as I said, she was a hot girl. If men did it, we wouldn't judge them. So we're not going to judge Diane. But Diane, she was a round-the-way girl. She slept with who she wanted to. It sounded like Diane got around. And it sounds like they were trying to describe her slightly as like a social climber. Like she'll sleep with people to get things. But she didn't care if he was black, white, polka dot. Diane slept with you. And apparently people were concerned that Bob Barker would find out that Diane has slept with Black men. And he has slept with a woman who has also slept with Black men. And that was just a problem for him. So when Bob Barker learned that she was sleeping, that she had previously slept with Black men, even though she wasn't currently, she was only sleeping with him, there was a huge blow up on set and he went off on her. She got upset and said that she has sucked his dick too many times to kiss his ass. I said, ooh. I know the young people will be like, ooh, she ate with that comment, but it's like, you still have to suck a nigga's dick who gave you no respect. To me, it's a lose-lose situation. But I mean, I guess we could say she ate him up with that comment, but he still got his dick sucked. So he may not feel like he's lost anything. That's just how I feel a man would think, but I am not a man. If you are a man watching this, let me know if I'm off. But he didn't give a damn. He still got his dick sucked. He's mad that somebody who was sucking black dick was sucking his. If you are not over 18, I hope that you are not here. My videos should say that. There's also a disclaimer, but that's what she said, so I got to repeat it. Now, there was a clause in the contract of the Barker Beauties that said that these women were not allowed to pretty much go and do Playboy because they were on a family and nationally syndicated network. And at that time, if you posed for Playboy, you probably don't want to be on The Price is Right, which people is watching with their grandkids and their families and all of that. So I did understand that clause in the contract. However, Diane was fed up with that man and she said she sucked too much dick. So she posed for Playboy and it pissed off the show. She left the show and she ended up suing for sexual harassment. Now, the part that I don't like is, no shade, this did give Karen energy. I don't feel like Diane was sexually harassed based on what they explained. You were a willing participant in sleeping with that man. But it sounds like when she wasn't doing what he wanted or because of sleeping with her, it started to interrupt the relationship. So that part does count as sexual harassment and quid pro quo. It does count as that. But it just seemed like she got mad that shit wasn't going her way and decided to sing like a canary. Because prior to that, she had no problem sleeping with him. Now she suddenly does. But the lawsuit caused issues on the set because Bob Barker wanted everybody to participate in the deposition, and they had to sign a form to do that, to show like, hey, there's no sexual harassment. This isn't retaliation. But Holly did not want to participate in the deposition. Holly is me. I don't want to participate in court if it don't have to do with me. I'm not. If I don't have to do it and this has nothing to do with me, why should I be coming to the deposition and speaking out? You're turning me against someone that I'm cool with and who's also my colleague. So I understood Holly's reasons for not wanting to sign the paper, but her not signing the paper caused for her to become Bob's next victim for retaliation. So Diane eventually drops her lawsuit against Bob Barker, unfortunately. And things went away, and you would think that because the lawsuit was dropped and the depositions weren't necessary, that Bob would leave Holly alone, but he did not. He was extremely upset, and he still retaliated against Holly. And in between all of that, they described Diane almost as a missing person. Even E put something up saying they attempted to locate, not just contact. E said they attempted to locate Diane and could not find her, and said that nobody that knows her, knew her, or knows of her could tell them of her whereabouts. And apparently she ain't dead, because I'm sure that they checked records on death and the certificates and all of that stuff. So I don't know where Diane is, and I'm curious how she's reacting to the documentary coming out. But I think part of the reason Diane is staying quiet is because she was sleeping with that man. She was doing it willingly. She knew that he had a girlfriend. And then when shit didn't go his way, because he was a racist, which she also knew about, then she decided to sue him. So I feel like maybe she feels like she doesn't have a story, but regardless of what, and her sleeping with him, if he did something to you that was not okay or impacted your job, the bedroom is separate from that, and she should feel safe to come and speak out. She should. It's not the 70s no more. We're not just going to judge you. Like, people like Sexy Red are famous. Come out of the darkness. You're okay, Diane. You're okay. Anybody who's still here in the video, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge you. I appreciate you. Feel free to comment your thoughts on how you feel so far. If you feel like I'm missing anything, any of that, I want to hear from y'all. That is why I do what I do, not just to hear myself talk. Let's get into what happens next with Holly, because it is a lot. So Holly was told after so long that she needed to lose weight. They were coming down on her for her weight. By the way, Holly's weight was everything. Nothing was wrong with her. And she was told after so long that she's going to go into early retirement. She had been on the show by then for about 20 years, and she didn't even get the option to quit. But as women, as you get older, eventually, like, your time is shorter in the industry back then than other people, usually. But she was asked to leave against her will. Fans of The Price of Right were extremely upset that Holly left, and they felt like it was strong, like it was odd, because Diane had to leave the show. And after she left the show, she sued the show. So, of course, people were paying attention. Then Holly leaves. They say she's going into early retirement. The fans got upset. Everyone was upset. And then Holly ended up going on a popular show back in the day called Hard Copy. And think of Hard Copy as like the Shade Room, TMZ, that type of stuff. And she explained what working with The Price of Right was really like for all of those years. And after she told her truth, Bob Barker sued her for defamation of character and slander. And she was alone for years in her lawsuit. And she says that a production assistant who worked on a show named Linda, she was there from like the 90s to 03 or something like that, was terrorized. And the reason that Linda was terrorized is because she overheard conversations that Bob Barker had, basically saying that Holly was pushed out and forced into an early retirement. It was retaliation, and Bob Barker didn't want that to get out. And so he started to retaliate against Linda because he found out that she had heard the conversation. The fact that she heard the conversation was a big deal for Bob Barker, because that means that she could have been subpoenaed in court and forced to tell the truth and testify. And if she did that, Bob Barker would lose his lawsuit and probably be at risk for being sued himself. So here's what I don't understand about evil people. If you want this lady to be quiet, why would you suddenly start treating her like shit? You're going to give her a reason to go and tell on you. If you want somebody to be and do for you, fear is never the way. That's why torture doesn't work. The science doesn't support it. Fear is never going to be a way to get the truth or what you want. It's actually making things worse, because when you put people into fear, you put them in a state of fight or flight, and they can't think and make decisions as ethically as they would outside of that state. But nobody listens to anybody trained in psychology, and that's why the world is the way it is, if we're being honest. You know, it's just a fact. But in the year 2000, Bob had some serious legal trouble, and the rest of the original Barker Booty, I keep wanting to say Barker Booty, and I don't know why and what's wrong with me, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for it. But in the year 2000, Bob and his legal issues, he kept expecting the people on his staff to speak out for him in court, which I believe today is illegal. And because people refused to lie for him in court, he fired all of the rest of the originals that were left, which was Kathleen, Janice. They were fired. They was let go of. They were not allowed to stay. So he pretty much just got rid of all the originals, probably so it would help him in court, and also so it wouldn't look like Holly was just leaving to leave, if that makes sense. Let me know if you guys felt differently, but I'm kind of looking at Janice and Kathleen. Like, I respect you for being the first Black lady on the set, but you were the first Black lady on the set. You accepted them using the N-word and dealing with all of that. Doesn't sound like you did much to stand up for shit aside from stopping the person from sexually harassing her. She's a beautiful woman, but what did you all expect? After watching what happened with Holly and seeing what happened with Diane, did y'all really expect that you would be expected to stay on that show? You knew too much and saw too much and became a liability. I think that's really why he wanted to get rid of them. That's just my personal opinion. And let me know how y'all feel about it. But that's just how I felt on it. But we then get to see Claudia Jordan, who many of you know because she is part of Love and Hip Hop. She was on the Housewives of Atlanta. We do a lot of reality television reviews. That is how my channel was birthed and started. So we have talked about Claudia Jordan, and we know that her career is successful. She also does that Fox panel with Vivica Fox and Lisa Ray McCoy, and I can't remember who the other one is, but Claudia Jordan's had a great career. I was not aware that Claudia Jordan was ever a Bob Barker beauty. I was not aware of it. She did it from the year 2000 when Kathleen was fired. She was the second Black woman to ever be on The Price of Right, and she was Kathleen's replacement. She was there till 03, so only for 3 years, but she says that those 3 years were hell for her. She comments on Phil Wayne. Phil Wayne is the son of the show's creator. He was also a pervert, and who Claudia tells us was extremely touchy with all of the women and the main driver of the sexual harassment that was happening on the stage and behind the scenes. Now, Claudia says that he grabbed her butt and used to make comments about Black women having bigger booties and things like that. And she says that she filed a complaint. And she says that after she filed the complaint about him touching on her, that retaliation started immediately. She says that she would get to work on time all the time because she had come to LA with $500 in her pocket and was just trying to make it. And this was her first job. So she would come there early. And she says that the security guard that worked the gate to let her in, probably a brother, because you know we be looking out for each other, I'm just saying, told her that Phil Wayne would make everybody report to him when Claudia arrived on the lot, and that he would set the clocks forward to make it look like she was late when she was not late. I said, that is crazy. That is crazy. So she says that after they did that, she was brought into Bob's office and was told that if she was late again, that she would be fired, even though she was never actually late. They were setting the clocks. I said, Jesus Christ. So that didn't work out for them. Now we're going to put a pin in that, because we did see that Bob Barker, again, we know that he was also racist in how he selected his contestants. We learned that he told the staff that they were only able, the way it worked on The Price is Right, if you wanted to get on the show to win stuff, you had to line up. And production and people who worked on the staff came out and selected people from the line to come in versus choosing the people at the front of the line, which I'm not going to get into that right now. But there was a rule that they were only allowed to choose 2 Black contestants to be in the audience at a time. And if you go back and watch the show and look at clips, you never really saw too many Black people on the show or in the audience at a time until Barker got really, really old and could not fight back and was costing the network money in his lawsuits, or until Drew Carey came, who I guess is the host today. Now, they showed a clip that made me question every Black person that watched the show or went on it, of a Black person who won something on the show and wanted to hug him like other contestants would. And Bob Barker was literally avoiding the person like that, saying, "Don't touch me, don't touch me." Nobody caught that? Nobody caught that? It took this documentary for anybody to catch that. But I'm late to everything. So I know that a lot of people, like, shout out to Kevin Reynolds. He's a subscriber of ours that supports the channel that we really appreciate and champion. He was letting me know, like, okay, yeah, this was a big thing in the 90s. But I'm still like, Black people were still interested in going on the show and watching it. It just baffles me. It baffles me. But they also still watch Erica Mena and support Zeus. So, you know, I'll digress there. But Claudia Jordan ended up suing the company. She sued the production company and CBS. She quit on stage in the middle of a show so that no one saw it coming for her treatment. She says she got on stage with a microphone and said, "I've been through hell. The way that they are treating me is insanity." And she walked off the stage that day at that time. And she says the next day she filed her lawsuit because she already knew how things went based on what Holly and Diane went through with her lawsuit. She says she called the same attorney and everything. And so because of that, Phil was fired. He lost his job and everybody settled with Claudia outside of court. So she got a nice settlement, which probably helped her to go on to be okay for the rest of her life, which was a good thing. I said, once again, a Black woman said 3 years was enough. I'm suing your ass. You not going to come for me. I did not send for you. And I'm about to make you as miserable as me because misery loves company. Here for it. Feel how you feel about Claudia Jordan, but she has always been extremely vocal about what it's like to work in the entertainment industry. And she made a good point. If you don't stand up for yourself and stand for something, you will always fall on your ass and be worth nothing, which is absolutely true. If someone treats you wrong, you stand up. Even if it gets nowhere, you pave the way and make it to where for somebody they can get some type of action. That's what happened with Diane, which led to Holly doing something. And Holly helped support and champion Claudia's lawsuit. So when you do stand up, you make it easier for others to be put in the position to be treated right. So I champion Claudia, Diane, and Holly. They all did a great job. Now, with Holly's lawsuit, it was more deep, though. Holly is the hero of this documentary. She really is. She's the unsung hero, and I hope that her life is easy. I do. So we learned that the lawsuit that Bob Barker had took out on Holly trying to sue her for defamation, he dropped it after 5 years, because after 5 years of fighting, the courts in California are going to say, listen, you either finna go to trial and we going to settle this shit and figure it out, or drop the lawsuit. So Bob Barker, he dropped the lawsuit against Holly after a 5-year battle. But Holly refiled the lawsuit. And she filed against him and sued him for malicious prosecution because he kept her in that lawsuit to make her go broke. She lost everything, ran through her retirement, and was living out of her car. And she said, I will not settle with him because he will just come back and bother me. And she says that when she filed her lawsuit back against him for malicious prosecution, which she had a case on, she said that Bob Barker, his attorneys at CBS, tried to get her to sign an NDA. And that to settle. An NDA, for those who do not know, is a non-disclosure agreement. It says, I am not allowed to talk about this or cannot speak on this. But she refused to settle and sign it. Went broke, lived out of her car, couch surfed, stayed in the lawsuit. She says she wanted all of her money to go towards and to stay in this lawsuit. And she said after a couple of years that went to trial, she won the lawsuit, got paid out, and she did not have to sign an NDA, which is how she was able to speak in this documentary. I said, Holly, That's why I be telling people, do not ever underestimate the power of a woman. Do not fuck with us. Just don't. I still think Black women are the strongest ever. But Holly, goddamn it, I respect you for everything you did. And I think women as a whole in totality are truly strong. Just look at childbirth and periods. That alone makes us so much stronger. But I respect her for being willing to sit homeless and go through hell just to keep your foot on that old geezer's neck. And she is the only person aside from Claudia to get true justice. So good for her. Now, Bob Barker retired in 2007, shortly after this lawsuit, and he was old as hell anyway. I feel like he was doing what the people in Congress and stuff are doing, just old as the dirt, wanting to stay in Congress till you can't walk and talk no more and shit. Like, retire and move on. But Bob Barker retired. They said by some he is still beloved. He sounds like trash. He sounds like everything that was wrong with America. The racism was disgusting and despicable. The treatment of women was disgusting and despicable. And one thing I know about this man after watching this documentary is that he will never get to see the wife that he loved, who tried to have him to have a great, straight, honest career, because she's probably in heaven and he is under the earth in the depths of hell, burning, hoping for a cup of water. That's how I feel about that after watching it. It was crazy. It was actually crazy to know that a show so light and so random, such as The Price is Right, was awful. And I know that James from Watch 'Em Out the View says he has known people who've gone on the show and have given, bad stories. Feel free, leave comments, drop a comment. Let me know your stories, opinions. If you know anybody who's gone on Price is Right, heard of anything about The Price is Right, let me know how you guys feel. I do appreciate everybody for tuning in and watching this review. It takes a lot to get up here and to speak on my own. I be scared. I'm shy. People don't know it, but I am. But I do appreciate all of the support. If you are new to the channel, I have had a lot of subscribers that are new. We want to take the moment. B3ST does welcome you. You are appreciated. To the people who are also already subscribed, you are also appreciated. Let me know your thoughts, you guys. If there are any other documentaries that you would like me to cover, any other shows, scripted, reality, feel free to DM me. See the links in the description, the disclaimers in the description as well, or the description on my channel. There's information on how to contact me if you want to make a suggestion or simply drop a comment. Other than that, tap into a song I made with my spouse called Bon Voyage. It's by Oh So Best. Subscribe, support, and we will see you guys for the next review. Adios.